Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. The last St. Louis County executive went to prison. The current one is under indictment. And the candidates running to replace them have built their campaigns on a single promise: no more games. Naturally, the two frontrunners spent this week mailing each other's faces to your house with big red X's on them. One says his opponent is a MAGA sleeper agent. The other stamped false on a claim that we checked is technically true. Today, both men on the record get to explain how the war on deception got this deceptive. We begin with State Senator Brian Williams, who joins us now on the record. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Marcus.
So the no drama candidate's first big move was mailing 90,000 postcards calling you a MAGA sleeper agent. As the alleged sleeper agent, how's the drama-free race going?
You know, I'll say this: as a son of a single mom, is quite shameful, and I found it to be hurtful as someone with a progressive record to have someone not only smear me, and to think that Mr. Zimmerman took a procedural vote and said that I voted against abortion rights when I've been on the front line, standing as one of a few Democrats in arguably one of the longest filibusters in the history of the state. The longest.
It was unsuccessful in the end.
It was unsuccessful, but we fought for 50 hours not only to protect the citizen-led petition process to ensure that voters got an opportunity to vote towards reproductive health rights for women and earn sick pay and an increase in minimum wage. And that fight we actually won. It was because of my commitment to progressive values and issues. And for Mr. Zimmerman to accuse me of being MAGA when I've been nothing but a progressive leader, and as a son of a single mom, is hurtful, and it's been hurtful to my family.
Here's my problem. Your response graphic stamps false claims over that mailer that cites an actual roll call vote with your name on it. We went and checked. So help me out. Was the vote fake, or is the spin on the impact of that vote fake? Because those are two very different things.
Absolutely. So it's the spin of the vote. So basically what it is a procedural vote that would allow a convention of delegates. If the federal government decided to go rogue, we would have delegates that can keep that in control.
In a Republican-led state, you would trust them with that power?
I would trust our state being able to make its own decisions and not having the federal government or any state deciding for us. But most importantly, this is something that, again, if it happened, would require ratifying several other states.
Yes.
It would require clearly delegates ensuring that they don't go vogue. It has nothing to do with abortion, no connection to abortion. And I'm proud of my record of being able to vote in support of women's rights and protecting women at all costs in the state of Missouri.
The mailer says Republican money wants you in this office. Maybe that's a smear. So let's take the red or blue out of it. Contracts do flow through that office. Just ask Steve Stanger. Why does big money on either side of the aisle want you in this job?
Well, I can't speak for why someone would want me into that job, but I can speak to my record and the simple fact that I have ran an office with integrity, that's been transparent, and most importantly, been able to find success in Jefferson City, where it's advocating for securing close to $100 million in funding back to this region, and most importantly, being able to do it in one of the most volatile legislatures in the country. And I think it's important to also note that it's one thing to say something and it be true, but it's a completely different thing to say something and it not be true. And what this comes down to is the fact that I have a progressive record with a reputation of being an ethical, thoughtful leader, and that won't change as county executive.
One last question on this, and we'll move on to the bigger picture issues in that office. And I do look forward to pressing Mr. Zimmerman in a few moments on many of these same attack ads that we're seeing. You're on the Crisis Nursery's advisory board.
Yes, sir.
The Crisis Nursery puts out a statement torching the PAC that supports your opponent. Coincidence?
It's not a coincidence, and again, I hadn't had any conversations as a board member, but I think for a charitable organization that I'm deeply committed to their causes. I've been on their advisory board for several years now, and to think that my opponent used their brand to try to promote a mailer discrediting and smearing me is completely unethical, and I am proud of them and any other organization who has their 501c3 status at jeopardy because a politician like Mr. Zimmerman decided to use their name.
A PAC supporting him.
Well, a PAC supporting Mr. Zimmerman is using their brand to try to promote a false smear against myself.
And we'll give him a chance to address that.
And again, I think it's, I'm proud of them for denouncing any negative campaigning, which I think is wrong. And most importantly, I think it's good that they denounce the fact that they stand for an organization that I'm proud to be a part of.
Senator, I'm going to ask you about the city-county merger. And before I do, just for our viewers to know, most people usually answer this question by saying, well, I'd have to wait and see the details. That answer has been given to our viewers in this region for 50 years now. You're free to give that answer. If you do, I'll just note for our viewers that you chose not to answer with specifics. So, as county executive, do you want to lead this region toward one government or defend two?
First, I want to note the fact that St. Louis County is broke. It has a $41 million budget deficit, and I was proud to carry legislation that opened up a fund of hotel motel tax money that county taxpayers paid into close to $50 million, which allowed us to essentially erase the budget deficit before voters elect me as their county executive. Meaning, my priority is stabilizing St. Louis County, making sure government services feel close to its residents. To think that the offices are closing at 3 p.m. instead of 5 p.m., that is an access problem. To think that we have so many different challenges around affordability, public safety is something that I think we need to prioritize. So my first term will be ensuring that the quality of life for county residents who live here is made whole. In terms of working with the city of St. Louis, I'm committed to working with the mayor, and I'm also committed to recognizing the fact that downtown St. Louis is our front door, and we should be prioritizing the city of St. Louis every step of the way. And I will do that as county executive, and then I can have a conversation about what does more regional collaboration or merger looks like.
You're asking voters to trust your judgment, but you're not
asking-
telling us what your deal breaker or your deal maker is.
I think it's going to come down again, Mark, to me being confident that St. Louis County government can uphold its end of the deal. And right now, the county is broke. The county has a disconnect from its services, and we have to get our own house in order.
Your opponent says the county needs a manager. You say the county needs a fighter. The last fighter is under indictment. The last deal maker went to federal prison. In one sentence, what does the county need from this office that it hasn't had in 12 years?
I think the county needs someone with a record that has delivered for St. Louis County as the largest county in the region, someone that's going to talk directly to residents about how you enhance their quality of life. And most importantly, St. Louis County has a story to tell, and they need a leader that can tell it, that will be able to navigate the legislature, that will be able to work closely with the council, and most importantly, be someone that identifies the best and the brightest individuals to help run county government and make every resident in the county proud. I've done that as a state senator, and I will continue to do it humbly with the support of county voters.
Thank you for respecting our viewers by taking these maybe at times tough questions. We will assess the assessor next. Welcome back to The Record. You just heard Brian Williams admit the vote on that mailer was real, but call the spin on it a smear and call the man he's running against unethical. That man is Jake Zimmerman, the county assessor of 15 years. He's here on The Record now to answer for the ad his own committee paid for, the one that says women cannot trust his opponent. But first, I want to ask you about this other ad, the outside ad. A shadowy PAC is carpet bombing mailboxes all over the county on your behalf, stealing a children's charity logo to do it. And you're the integrity candidate? Who funds Heartland Action?
A variety of people who support my campaign have done that. And, you know, I'm not allowed to coordinate with them. So my guess is they just took a picture off of Facebook of me and put it on that mailer.
That's true. If your answer is I cannot legally coordinate with a PAC, noted.
That's right.
Viewers should know that's true. But a public statement is not coordination. So the question really stands. Do you denounce the mailer, yes or no?
I think that I want to be very clear that the St. Louis Crisis Nursery is a 501c3. They are a nonprofit. They cannot and they should not endorse any candidate. But I mean, come on. I took a picture with their logo while we were dropping off diapers for a diaper drive, and that picture is all over social media. So anybody who wants to use that is welcome to use it.
So you think it's fair use. So if the children's charity publicly asking that PAC that's trying to elect you to stop using its name, and they
then I'd prefer they stop doing it, because I don't want to do anything to get in the way of a children's charity who's just trying to get diapers to people who need them.
Okay,
that's the last thing in the world I want.
That's the outside group. We'll move on. We've noted already that he sits on their board, and we've addressed that. Your own ad, the one that your campaign is running, says that women can't trust your opponent. Really? Which women?
Look, my opponent voted with Republicans to open
And
up...
a Democrat, a female Democrat, Tracy
Yes,
McCreary.
but overwhelmingly with Republicans, to open up the United States Constitution to extreme abortion bans. That's why Common Cause and other organizations nationally have made very clear that that is a dangerous idea, and no one who supports women's reproductive rights should do it.
To be clear, that's building an inference on top of a couple hypotheticals. It maybe could eventually get there. The bill itself did not explicitly do that. I want to ask you, though, not about his voting record on Senate Bill 1190. I want to ask you to defend the sentence. Women can't trust him? Is that true?
Look, you know what Harry Truman said, right? They called him "Give him hell, Harry." And he said, "I don't give him hell. I tell the truth, and they think it's hell." The truth is that my opponent voted to open up that constitutional convention, and the truth is that my opponent has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations from MAGA Republicans and Republican MAGA donors. So look, people can decide for themselves who's on their side. The only thing I'll say is that Abortion Action Missouri, which is the premier local group fighting for women's reproductive rights, has endorsed my campaign and made very clear that there is one candidate in this race that women can count on to stand up for their rights. That's me.
You say give them hell. We'll say politics ain't beanbag. Let's move on a little bit more of these ad questions, and we'll get on to the substance of this race. Leading the fight against Donald Trump in a county executive race, some of your ads and mailers say. Do voters in Fenton get a pothole filled faster if you fight Trump harder? Why is a president or a national political boogeyman on a local mailer?
Look, like you said, politics ain't beanbag, and in this year and at this moment, voters deserve to know where you stand. This is a Democratic primary, and people need to decide for themselves who's the real Democrat,
so it polls
and who's on their side. But the other thing that I will say is that you're dead on right. What this race is about is fixing the malaise in St. Louis County government, fixing the nonsense, the politicians squabbling with one another, and like you said, filling the potholes and making sure the parks are maintained. And that's what I hope people will think about as they decide who to vote for.
You said people don't like politicians who squabble. You've taken an obscure process vote on a future hypothetical constitutional convention and spun it into an attack on women by Brian Williams. You've led a pretty negative campaign so far against this opponent. I get it, politics ain't beanbag. But on character and consistency, are you really not slick? Are you really not squabbling? Are you not the man you're campaigning against?
I mean, look at me. I am what I am. If you think this guy is slick, then, maybe look just a little bit harder. But I make no apology, and I'll be very clear about this. I make no apology for telling the truth about what my opponent has said and done. And
even if it comes with a little spin.
This campaign is a choice, and it is a choice between who is really on your side and who is going to do the work to fix the issues in county government and who's more interested in calling somebody else's tune.
Some of his allies, some of his consultants, they appear as donors in your campaign. Would you accept an endorsement from Sam Page?
Look, I'll take an endorsement from anybody who wants to give one to me, but I don't think anybody much cares what Sam Page thinks in this race. Sam Page will be back in the hospital putting needles in people come January, but the rest of us who want to try and get down to business and get something done, this is our problem now. And so for all of the forever wars, I don't care if you love Sam Page, I don't care if you hate Sam Page. My question is, what are we going to do to solve some problems, balance the budget, and get back to business?
For those keeping track at home, we've worked carpet bombing and forever wars into an interview about county government. It feels like 2003 all over again.
Sure does.
Jake Zimmerman, thank you for joining us. We should note that there is a third name on your ballot come August 4th if you're a Democrat voting in St. Louis County. That is State Senator Angela Mosley. We've extended the same invitation to her. We regret to inform you she has not accepted it. That invitation stands. We're back in a moment. Perhaps the biggest race on your ballot, August 4, is the rematch in Missouri's 1st congressional district. Cori Bush running to unseat Wesley Bell after he ousted her 2 years ago. So let's turn to our trusty monitor and Monitor the situation. We begin with an update on the story we've been digging on for weeks. We've been following the money, and the paper trail raises big questions. On Monday, I asked Cori Bush 2 questions any donor or any voter deserves answered. How much tornado relief money did your nonprofit take in, and where did the money go? She told me, quote, "I cannot speak to it as a candidate." Now, since then, I've checked with campaign finance attorneys, experts. There is no law, no rule, nothing stops a candidate from describing her own past work for a PAC or for a nonprofit. And Bush's own emails that raised that money claim the nonprofit she used to do it was not the PAC, not affiliated. So that shield doesn't exist. Even if it did provide her a shield for the PAC, that shield would not extend to the nonprofit tornado fundraiser we detailed with those emails. Important to note, the paper trail shows money from that nonprofit going into her PAC and money from that PAC paying her and her husband. Since then, Missouri's Attorney General Catherine Hanaway shared our interview online, writing, "Very concerning, we're looking into this." Separately, a Clayton attorney filed a formal ethics complaint with the House this week, alleging Bush filed one required financial disclosure nearly 15 months late and still hasn't filed the one required of candidates running for Congress this year, the report that would show us how she makes her money. To be clear, Bush is not accused of a crime. And we have questions for everyone here, including why the Republican Attorney General would announce this 3 weeks before an election in a Democratic primary. Typically, law enforcement doesn't confirm the existence of an ongoing investigation until they have charges or probable cause. I asked if they felt, in this case, maybe the public interest or the right to know outweighed their usual protocols. They did not answer that directly. But the first questions for the former Congresswoman were the simple ones. How much tornado relief money did Cori Bush raise? How did she spend it? We'll keep asking until you get a straight answer. Ballot language can be brutal and ads can add to that pain. We break down 2 amendments coming soon to Missouri ballots when we come back. Jim Roeder's been watching this station for 50 years. And this week he wrote in to say he can't tell who wins and who loses on Amendments 4 and 5 because he feels the commercials don't give it to him straight. Jim writes in to say, could you please have more plainly worded descriptions of who the winners and losers are? He tells us, I watch the commercials and don't know who or what to believe. I'm so pessimistic now, thinking that the bad side will spin the wording to get people to vote for it. Well, Jim, pro tip. When nobody's really telling you who's winning, it's generally not you. So let's check the record. Amendment 4, they say it protects the Constitution. But from whom? From you. Right now, a majority of Missourians can amend their own Constitution. That's called self-government. Amendment 4 ends that. Under the new rules, voters in a small corner of the state could override the majority everywhere else. They don't trust you with your own Constitution. So if you like being the boss of your own Constitution, that's an argument for voting no. If you'd rather ask permission, maybe you'd lean yes. At least now you know exactly what you're voting on, which apparently is more than the advertisers managed. Amendment 5 works the oldest trick in the tax man's book. Put the cut where you'll see it and the hike where you won't. Here's the cut. A married one-earning household making Missouri's median income about $70,000 pays about $1,650 a year in state income tax, assuming the standard deduction. We'll call it $32 a week. That same household that makes $150K, about $5,400 a year, or $104 a week. Notice the family making twice as much saves more than 3 times as much if you slash the income tax. And nobody saves it on August 5th, the day after the primary. This is a phase-out. Could take up to 10 years, tied to revenue triggers in the state budget. Then, or maybe well before then, would come the higher sales, use, and property taxes right back out of your check, nickel by nickel, at the register, where nobody keeps a running tally. Unless you keep all those receipts and just add it up yourself on the drive home. So, if you spend most of your check just staying alive, paycheck to paycheck, you're probably a lot more likely to carry more of this tax burden than the guy who has a lot more disposable income. Now, supporters make a macroeconomic growth argument. Let people keep more up front and the whole tax pie grows. Maybe, but that bet requires trusting Jefferson City not to get creative about taking it back out at the checkout line. Amendment 4 is Jefferson City saying it doesn't trust voters with the Constitution. And Amendment 5 is Jefferson City asking you to trust them with your checkbook. You can decide just how that trust is running lately. And Jim, stay skeptical. Maybe not pessimistic. It's working for you. Just aim it at the fine print, not at the whole system. That's our show. Until next time, we're off the record.